We have quite a few messages today, but they're all focused on that one word, rejoicing. We are very happy to rejoice on this third Sunday of Advent. That nice pink candle is lit for us to remind us of the hope that's to come, that we need to rejoice in that God will be with us in flesh. The Isaiah message of hope that he delivers with us today is all about the coming Messiah. So it's like foreshadowing. It's like looking ahead and seeing what will happen when the Messiah arrives and comes. And he starts out by describing a desert blossoming, blooming. And I've been to Israel, and most of Israel is a desert. And I'm sure when it rains, and it only rains about 8 or 10 days of the year, when it does rain, the desert just sucks up that moisture, and I'm sure the blossoms are very fragrant and very colorful. And that's what Isaiah's message of hope is to the people of Israel at that time. We know that Israel has been overpowered, they've been taken over many times, they've had different rulers over different periods of time. And at this particular time when Isaiah is talking to the people of Israel, many of those people who have been dispersed are now coming home to Israel. And they are renewing their strength. They are gathering themselves up, and they are being joyful in returning to their homeland. But Isaiah also tells us how we're going to recognize the Messiah. And what's going to happen is people are going to be cured of all of their illnesses. That is the main focus of that part of this reading. And that through all of that curing of the illnesses, they will experience what's called everlasting joy. They will be back in their homeland, and they will be ruling over themselves, and they will experience everlasting joy. So that's Isaiah's message about the coming Messiah. And I'll connect it to the gospel in a second, but I do want to touch on James' letter, because it does have something to do with what we're doing right now, and that is his message of patience. James is telling us that we need to be patient, and he even gives us a very prime example of patience. I'm going to share my own example first. So this morning when I was on my way to church, it was early, probably around 7:15, 7:30, and I was driving down Wonderland Road, and of course it had snowed, but the roads were really, they were wet, but not dangerous or anything. So I was driving along at a pretty decent rate of speed, and all of a sudden at Oxford and Wonderland, the light was changing. So I had to slow down rather quickly, but the car that was kind of racing alongside of me sped up and went through that orange, almost red light. So that person, I said a little prayer for that person because they weren't being patient. And maybe I wasn't up until that point because I was going along. Thank goodness there were no officers around. I wouldn't say I was exceeding the speed limit, really, but that was a prime example of how easily it is for us to lose our patience, to lose that opportunity to really focus on what we're doing and approach everything safely. But James talks about farmers, and I also have experience with farmers. My son-in-law is a farmer, and so I see every year what Brad goes through as a farmer, and he's very patient. He patiently waits for the snow to melt and for the ground to dry enough so he can get out and seed the crops. And then he waits patiently for the rain to come, and he waits patiently for the drying to happen, and then he waits patiently for a little bit more rain so that the crops can be that much better healthy-wise. And then he waits patiently for that ultimate moment for him to harvest the crop. And so my son-in-law, who's half my age, shows an awful lot more patience in that regard than probably I would. And I know our young people who are here for their first communion and other young people are waiting patiently for Christmas to arrive. Is that right? Yes? Are we waiting patiently, or are we impatiently waiting? It's very exciting, and it's only 2 weeks away. Yay. But James' main message is that we need to be patient. We need to exhibit patience. But he also asks us to have strength of heart, be strong of heart. And how do we get to be strong of heart? I know in my experience, I get my strength through prayer. My strong heart comes through prayer. And whenever I connect with God or with Jesus or with Mother Mary or one of the saints that I'm praying to, I get strength in my heart. And that's how we, as people of God, gain our strength, is through the power of prayer. And it's through prayer that we are reminded that we should not complain or grumble. And that's something James also tells us not to do. Don't complain and don't grumble. And in that respect, he talks about the prophets. He talks about what the prophets have gone through, the endurance and the tests that they have gone through. And they have patiently delivered the message that God asks them to do. And so we look at the prophets, and they are a prime example for us about how to exhibit patience and strength of heart. Finally, we get to Matthew's Gospel. And how many times have we probably asked ourselves, is Jesus really our Messiah? And maybe not in those words exactly, but those words that John is sending with his disciples are questions that we have already asked too. But I think John the Baptist is sending his disciples there so that they can recognize the Christ, the Messiah, in Jesus. And when he is gone, his disciples can follow Jesus. I think that's why he sent them to talk to Jesus. And what is Jesus' answer? He says, look at what has happened and hear what has happened. The deaf hear, the mute speak, the lame walk, the blind see again, the dead rise from the dead. They rise to new life. But then Jesus does what he typically does in these kind of events. He turns the tables away from himself and starts talking about John and who John is and why people need to listen to John. He even goes to the point of saying that John the Baptist is the greatest prophet. We need to take that to heart as well and see and hear what John is saying in opening the path for Jesus to follow.